Last week's episode was intended to be a one and done sort of thing, while we were all kind of heated from the news of the potential Las Vegas move. But a bunch of you watched live, and um, even more of you have watched in the weeks since. And my inbox was hit with a bunch of requests to be on future episodes. So I decided I should probably make future episodes. But since last week, there hasn't been a whole lot of developments either in Oakland or Las Vegas. It's come out that Dave Cavill may be rubbing some officials the wrong way. But beyond that, they're not publicly closer to leaving than they were last time we spoke. And frankly, who's surprised that Cavill's rubbing people the wrong way? But in the weeks since our last episode, there has been a huge swell of distaste for John Fisher and Dave Cavill. Local and national media are calling them out for who we've known them to be for a while. Protests have been organized, petitions are being distributed, and A's fans seem to be on a quest to keep Fisher's name trending on social media for as long as they possibly can. Of course, in the face of all this, Rob Manfred is siding with ownership, which is his job, admittedly. But when real leadership and stewardship is badly needed, nobody in a position of power in this process has shown even an ounce of what's needed to get the job done. Today, I'm joined by Hal, who you may know online as the team's most beloved hot dog vendor. Feel free to chime in on the chat and we'll get you involved. And if you'd like to sit in on a future roundtable, just let me know. You can either DM me or you can email me at uprooted@herohabit.com. Hello, Hal. It's nice I don't think we've ever actually met in person. So it's nice to have you here.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you.
So what were your initial thoughts last week when the news came down as it came down?
Oh, it's just like really sad, right? Like, I think when you just saw the shift in certainty from the quotes from like Cavill and Manfred, and then like when the mayor had her press conference, it just seemed like, oh, well, that's it. We're done forever. And it was really sad. Since then, yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think that at least my feelings have gone, well, maybe it's not as done as of a deal as it seems, but you still don't know if it's just different stages of grief. Oh, Tony, I think you're muted.
I hit the wrong button to unmute. Since this thing started, and particularly since Cavill got involved, because Lou Wolf tended to keep things closer to his chest until he needed them to be off his chest, right? Where Dave Cavill seems to be a little bit more undisciplined in that regard. So the whole time that he's been pursuing this, whether it was Delaney College site or Howard Terminal or now Vegas, it always seems like he is trying to tell us it's a done deal. So I think it's easy for us to start going through those stages of grief because we're being told it's a done deal. But like in reality, and I know, this has been talked about online, especially by people in the media, there's no land purchase yet. There's no private financing yet, or no public financing, which without the public financing, he can't get the private financing. There's no vote from the baseball owners or anything yet. They're just a shade past the first stages of moving to Las Vegas, and maybe it's too late to stop it. Maybe it's all just a ploy to get what they want in Oakland. Or maybe this is just, like I've said 1,000 times, just them not being that great at their job. But it is weird because it does have like a sense of finalness to it that it may or may not actually have.
Yeah, I think it's, I might be somebody who's just more, feels more certain when, they think there's something that's in the lead. But yeah, it's definitely not the sort of the 99.9% that it felt like the first night. I think that there's a great chance for politicians to balk at the $500 million in Nevada. I think that's pretty much sort of the only chance that we have in the A's staying in Oakland. But I mean, it's not like a good deal for Nevada. I don't think it's a good deal for Nevada, but you know, I don't also live in Las Vegas, you know, and have that eternal optimism that everything is just going to be bigger and bigger and greater. So
I mean, from the get go, I've kind of been against Las Vegas move because I don't think it's a good baseball town. And somebody put out today that if they get a baseball team, they will be the smallest market in the whole country that's got three major sports in it.
yeah,
Well,
I
you know,
think yeah, I think that's true. You know, we like for you know if we forget, but like at the you know also they've you know they've drawn really well with the teams that they have, and a lot of those that draw is you know visitors from out of state. And from a sports perspective, you know, like from a fan perspective, it's terrible. Like you know, I can't imagine being a Raiders season ticket holder who goes there every game, and you just completely you know overwhelmed with opposing fans in you know half the games. But if you're the city, you know, if you're the Clark County and you're thinking about this money wise, you're like, you know, ooh, give me some more tourist dollars. It's I think for a number of reasons, that's actually kind of a foolish proposition for Las Vegas. Partly because you know I think that while maybe having the first one or two professional teams is going to bring in a lot of tourists for them, after a while, I think they're probably just going to be stealing tourists from something else. You know, if you're an NHL fan and a baseball fan and a football fan, you're not gonna you know take a flight from Boston to Las Vegas three times in a year. You know, you might say, oh, now that the Red Sox are going to play there, instead of seeing the Patriots next year, I'll see the Red Sox instead. And so I question how many of those new tourists are really new tourists that they're going to draw. There is one, you know, group that I think will really do well by that deal, and that's John Fisher and his family. I think
yeah,
I think it's a good deal for him.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I think going back to your talk about the tourists too, like football is a tourist attraction in itself, right? They do one game a week. It's
Yeah,
mostly, you know, weekends or long weekends, you know. So like if I'm planning a trip to Vegas anyway, and my favorite football team is there, and odds are I'm going to be doing it on the weekend, you
yeah,
might go and do that game. In my feeling, if the A's were to move to Las Vegas in 4 or 5 seasons, their Tuesday night games wouldn't look any different than they do in Oakland, right? Because that's not going to be a huge draw. You're talking like an April or May game on a weeknight. That's off season for Vegas. It's kind of off season for baseball. There's school in session, and Las Vegas has no connection to this team, right? The Golden Knights work because they are something that Vegas can get behind as their home team. I don't know that that's going to be as instant with a relocation team, no matter who it is, as it would be with an expansion team. If it's an expansion team, you know, they'll name it something uh, appropriate for the area. They'll really try to draw in the locals, but like they've already got a minor league team. Yeah, I just don't see how those Tuesday night games or the Wednesday afternoons when it's 112 degrees outside, how they're going to be any different than they are in
yeah.
Oakland right now.
I think that they will be similar to Oakland in say 2019 on a Tuesday night. I think post post Corona Oakland, and then you know post Parallel Paths Oakland has been like particularly just terrible. I'll say you know I'm glad I'm not working this year, but last year when I worked almost every game, it it was it was something to behold to see like less than 3,000 people in the seats. But yeah, I think that you're right that the Las Vegas team might not necessarily draw any better than the A's did on some of those times. I think that they are going to sell out like you know every single Yankees and Dodgers and Angels you
Right.
know game like no problem. Um, but like they would have been able to do that at Howard Terminal as well. Um, you know, it reminds me, when I think of like how will Vegas be fans, it reminds me that before I've vended in the Bay Area, I vended in Washington D.C. and the Nationals were the most recent team to move cities. Um, and Washington D.C., just like I think Las Vegas, it's a city where a lot of people, a lot of young people come to work there from all over the country, not necessarily from Washington D.C. So you get a lot of out of town fans, like we're probably going to see in Vegas, and it eventually worked there. But I remember their big rivalry games are supposed to be with the Orioles, and all these Nats fans before they were Nats fans, if they were from DC, they were Orioles fans, and now all of a sudden their big rival is the team that they all used to root for. It's and so when the Baltimore fans would go in there, when they do the national anthem, whenever they say "oh" in the anthem, all the Orioles fans yell "oh." And I was there for this Nats Orioles game in DC, and the entire stadium erupts in this "oh." And I was thinking, if I grew up in Chicago, it's like, if this was a Cubs White Sox game and the other team, came in and did something like that, there'd be people be throwing punches. It's like, but all these, it's all these fans used to be other teams' fans. It wasn't. It felt like the fandom was new, and there was a little bit less special, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. Somebody asked me a couple days ago what I thought the the pulse of the fans was right now, and you have more connection to the fans than most of us. In your view, what do you think the numbers are that actually will continue following A's baseball in Las Vegas versus switching to another team or just not watching MLB at all?
That's a real good question. I think it's going to be pretty low. I think that for two reasons. So, one reason, I think the Raiders fans had already gotten used to rooting for their, Raiders teams in LA, moves around and around and around. That's the A's have been here for 55 years, I think. And so few people watch them currently. Once, and the reason is because they've threatened to leave, and everything has been, I don't have to tell you, my wife, I was trying to explain to my wife what I was doing tonight, and I was like, well, I'm getting an interview with the one guy who ever saw Interview Cavill, right? So Tony, you know all the reasons why nobody watches right now, and so few people watch right now. Like, they ain't gonna be like, oh, we were treated so well when you were in Oakland the last 5 years. I'd love to keep the punishment up. And the second reason is it's just harder to follow a baseball team from afar. I don't know if they're gonna broadcast all of the A's home games in Oakland. I don't know. You're gonna have to get like a special cable package.
Well, I mean, the A's already have to pay to be broadcast on radio. They're definitely not going to broadcast on radio at the very least.
Yeah. So how are you going to follow them? And also it's baseball's every day. It's hard to follow a team. It's harder to follow a team from afar.
And
so I don't think the A's fans are going to stick around.
And that MLB will screw it up with the territorial rights and everything, because we'll still be too close to watch them, even at 500 miles or whatever. And then, it just came out the other day that if they do this move, they'll be sharing the territory of, I think, 4 teams. I think it was Arizona, LA, Dodgers, Angels, and the Padres. Maybe the Giants are in there too. So it's like they're going from like one of the biggest markets in the country where they're just splitting it in half to a much smaller local market where they're splitting it 4 ways. I just don't see how any owner can look at that and go, this is the move.
I mean, to try and to play devil's advocate, I don't think the Bay Area is split down the half, and now I don't,
no, definitely not. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And and I don't know how much it's gettable. I mean, even if it was population split in half, all that money is in the peninsula. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think I get, I think I can understand where they're coming from as an ownership group. I don't think it's good for baseball or Major League Baseball, but I can see where they're coming from. The I don't know, so I don't think A's fans are going to follow him. I don't know how A's fans are feeling like right now, but I'll say this: I haven't gotten as much, the last time I can remember so much activity on social media of A's fans is, right at the end of last season with the Stephen Vogt game, and that was like one day. This has been going on now for a whole week. So I think some A's fans have already stopped watching, but I think a lot of A's fans are really well. They're tuned in a lot more than they would be if it was just a regular
Right.
five and whatever season.
Well, I've always said, and maybe I'm biased because I've been an A's fan my whole life. I've always said that we were the smartest fan base in baseball because you go back to the early days of Billy Beane, and we had to justify to our friends who were like Giants fans or whatever, why would you trade so and so? So like we got in to the analytics. We were going on Baseball Reference and going through everybody's, stats and all that. Now with this whole saga of 20 years of this relocation, we know more about EIRs than any fan base in the country. I guarantee it. So to see them all riled
That's
up
true.
about this is kind of, I think it's kind of cool, and to be a part of that fan base that's like so riled up about it. I wonder how it would go if the A's were the first team to 20 wins instead of the first team to 20 losses. Where our focus would be if this kind of momentum would would be
Yeah.
split between, well, if it is over, at least we're going out on a high, but like we're obviously not going out on a high. But yeah, it has been cool to see like that level of engagement, because you can't argue that the fan base isn't passionate or that it's not there. The numbers are there, to support a team if the team wants to support itself, and we
Yeah.
haven't seen that in years.
Um, yeah. I've never met um, I've never met like sort of like a baseball fandom that is so sort of like close knit. And you know, it might just be because it's because right now it's small. But I mean, just the dedication of like, I I don't know how many other like uh baseball teams like have okay, you're either a right field person or a left field person in like super fandom. The right
Right.
field guys are drumming all day and like have their own fan like supporters club, where they like, hold meetings about what to do about their crappy owner. And then the left field, that's the party crew that are making t-shirts out of the back of their car,
Right.
and and more, there's some more t-shirts than Fanatics is at the stadium. It's it's a wild community. So I think, at the very least, I'm excited about going to the Coliseum for the rest of the season, you know, just to know like, this is my last chance to do it.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are feeling that, and a lot of people are feeling like, what do we have to lose? Let's go and have fun. And I know that tomorrow there's some people that are planning to protest at the BART bridge at 5 o'clock, and there's other people that are going to be meeting to work on some art supplies in the in the parking lot. And I think it's a tough day. The Friday, these, they're kind of early games on Friday afternoon, and it's during a Warriors game too. So, but
Yeah.
but I think that there's going to be more people there than there would have been.
Yeah, probably right. Eric said in the chat that the mayor of Oakland did a few media appearances today at 7, which I didn't see any of those, but she said the door is open for negotiations and hasn't heard anything since last week. I'm not surprised at all that they haven't heard anything since last week, because the whole intentional leak of this information, which was 1,000% orchestrated by the A's front office, because they've got quotes from Dave Kaval in this leak, was a big middle finger to the Oakland, who was just days away from announcing that they had bridged a lot of the gaps between team and city. I wonder if when she says if negotiations, if they're open to negotiations, if that includes Fisher and Kaval, or if this is if MLB forces us to, or if MLB forces them to sell, we'll sit down with them. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really interesting when sort of the background of what happened last week came out, which was I guess what happened last week was they were going to sit down for this week-long sort of big session to try and hammer it all out, and then on Friday they would have announced if they could do it or couldn't do it. And in the middle of that, this is when this is announced. It doesn't seem like they needed it. It seems like, I know that they're under time pressure in Vegas, but it seems like they could have announced buying this plot of land this week, right? On Monday.
Right.
I kind of think my theory is that they sensed that, I mean, I guess they could have just been completely intransigent when they met with the A's. But I guess that would have just gotten the same outcome. But 3 days later.
Right.
But if they had tried, I think that they probably might have been able to come close to an agreement. But that agreement would have meant that they get a stadium 3 years later than they'll get it in Las Vegas. And that agreement, doesn't include this, what they think that they can get from the Las Vegas government. And that agreement includes having to develop Howard Terminal, which, before interest rates changed and before inflation changed and before work from home changed, probably seemed like a much better deal to John Fisher than it does now. And so I kind of think that they just were like, you know what? Whatever deal that we get, we might be able to get a deal with Oakland, but it's not going to be as good as this one. So let's just let's not talk to them anymore, because if we do get a deal, then they'll be like, well, you got a deal with Oakland, why are you going to Vegas? Right. It's easier for them to convince everyone to vote for it and, approve it if they say there was no way we could get a deal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In the chat, I'm being told what happened tonight, and that Ginger said that the mayor called them out for moving the goalpost at every turn. That's a fair thing, because things that they were asking for 5 years ago, they've got, and now they've got a whole new list of things that they want. And then she said that she'd pick up Fisher and Caval's call, but they'd have to make the first move. That's also fair, considering how they exited from these negotiations last week. And then says, John Fisher seems like the type of guy to charge valet fees for hosting his own kid's birthday party. That's
okay. I don't think she said that. I think that was just Tim making a joke.
That would be the greatest comment from a mayor in the history of American politics.
If she said it like that, I was just like, wait, she really said that? That's crazy. Oh my god.
But that wouldn't even be the craziest thing at this point, So did you see it came out that after we did last week's episode, I went back and I listened to the interview I did with Kaval, because that was it was a year ago yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
And now, with a year of hindsight, and I released a podcast episode about this, and I just had a few comments, but with a year of hindsight, some of the things he said really make less sense now than they even did a year ago. And where he's talking about how they've made tons of offers on property, and that they'd even just in fact made an offer the day before, and none of that was public knowledge. Nobody ever heard a word about that. And then today it comes out that they actually turned down the opportunity to buy a plot of land for $1. And obviously they would never take that, because buying a piece of land for $1 comes with so many strings attached to it that why would you bother? It's not really a legitimate thing. But it made me wonder if that was what he was talking about a year ago. If that's it, then you were really selling me a bill of goods a year ago, even about all the work that they've done to get this moved, to get this parallel path set up. I really don't think they've done any of the legwork at all beyond what we've heard in the last week.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also think like the I heard in an interview with one of the county commissioners, I think the county commissioner whose area this would be in, he was saying, well, we've been talking with the A's for 2 years. So they have probably had another year's worth of conversations with Las Vegas.
Right, but
I don't
by the
know.
time they were
I don't know, man. It seems like
by the
they'll have
time
to
they
do
were
it quickly.
yeah,
Yeah.
by the time they were 2 years in, when Cavill took over, they had passed legislation through the state house. They had, done their due diligence on 3 different sites in the Bay Area, in Oakland.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they did Laney, which, was a big cluster, but
Yeah.
like they it seems like they were further along 2 years into that process than they are now. And I know Vegas or Nevada is not going to have as much red tape, but it doesn't have
Yeah.
no red tape. And you've already got I forget if he was a state congressperson or a city councilor or whatever, but he was like, there's a difference between asking for the money and actually getting the money. And to me,
Yeah.
that would, if I was Fisher and Cavill, that would be a huge red flag that I'm not doing my work as far as an advocate for this project and getting the right people to agree that this project is a worthy thing for their money.
Yeah. Uh, you know, I don't know. I don't know how much pushback they're going to get. I think that they're probably also telling Las Vegas right now. They're probably telling them, well, this is your one chance for a Major League Baseball team. We're not going to come back to you if you say no to this. And that I think that's a threat that they'll feel. And so I don't know how easy it'll be to push through. I think them, burning the bridge with Chang Tao so spectacularly isn't going to help them in the negotiations.
Right.
But I don't know,
But it's
man.
not,
Like Tennessee just like gave $750 million, or like more than that, or like $1 billion to the Tennessee Titans to stay in Nashville. So, there's crazy cities out there who
the
really
thing
want
with
teams.
the thing with burning your bridge with the Oakland, though, is that it doesn't help you on either front, because now you have no leverage against Vegas either. Because now Vegas will go, you want $500 million from us, but you can't do anything without us. So, how about
Yeah.
no? Or you go back to Oakland. Like, so all he's done is give all the power to Oakland and Vegas. The A's have no power in this at all at this point.
I think burning the bridge with Oakland helps you with one group though, and that's probably the other owners. When
Maybe, yeah.
when the other owners are thinking, should we allow John Fisher to move to Las Vegas? All John Fisher has to do is turn on, the video of this, youngish, minority woman mayor who's screaming about how John Fisher tricked her, and this group of old conservative white guys is going to be like, well, yeah, of course you can't deal with that.
That's a fair point. And you like to think that the owners are smart enough to see through this and to see what Fisher and Cavill are doing, but part of you knows they're not.
Yeah,
like
and,
at the end of the
for
day, if they can make $1 off of it, they're going to make the dollar off of it.
And for the owners, who are you going to empathize with? The guy who also owns an MLB team, but is not, nearly making as much money as you are because blah, 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 blah. Or are you going to empathize with fans. You can empathize with the guy who's in the same position you are.
Right. I had somebody come after me today on Twitter saying that this is all the fans' fault, and the fans couldn't get it done because the fans are the ones that are obviously negotiating multi-billion-dollar land development deals for the team. And I've also had guys from Vegas pop into my account and talk about how great it's going to be because when they're in Vegas, they're going to have all this extra money, and it's going to be great. And then I always point them to the San Jose Earthquakes, who have the exact same ownership group, the exact same people pulling the strings and opening the purse, and they have not been a very successful soccer team, and they have not spent on payroll. All the things that Cavill and Fisher are promising us now, they promised San Jose back then, and none of it came to fruition. And then when I was listening back to that interview, when I asked him about it, he said the proof will be in the pudding, whether we spend or not. Now,
Yep.
if I was another owner, all the other stuff aside, if I was another owner, that would give me more pause than all the bickering between cities and all the mismanagement they've had. The fact that they still won't commit to putting in money, that they might still want to be on revenue share once they're in this. It's like, because they're going to take a hit. They're not getting the expansion fee.
Uh-huh.
Or they're not getting the relocation fee where they could get an expansion fee. So they're not getting that fee. They may not get a competitive team. 4 teams in that corner of the country, LA and Arizona, are now going to have a new competitor they'll be closer to all the teams down there than they're closer to any of the LA teams now.
Yep.
And they're gonna cede the largest unshared market in the country to the Giants, which means their revenues are going to go up. So Dodgers are going to have someone in their division that's going to have all this extra revenue they got to compete with. They may not want to do that if they hear that the A's are also probably going to keep doing business as usual. It's just everything they do. It's like, it seems like if I was an owner, and obviously I'm not a billionaire like these guys are, but it seems like from just a business standpoint, and this is your expertise here, all of these things would be red flags if I was a business owner.
I think that if I owned a baseball team, I would rather have a John Fisher than a Steve Cohen. If John Fisher doesn't want to make his own money and doesn't want to spend anything, great. That means I don't have to compete with him to sign players. I don't have to compete with him for labor. I don't have to compete, so like, do other owners care if John Fisher's a cheap asshole? I mean, maybe not. The other thing I'll say is that in support of you, whenever I get excited about the A's, at Howard Terminal and thinking like everything's going to be different, it's going to be great. The 4 scariest words were, I guess it'd be 5 scariest words were San Jose Earthquakes and Miami Marlins. Like, if the owners are still a jerk, even if you have a new stadium, it might not work. And Miami has a lot in common with Las Vegas. You never know. You never know if that, I mean, now their stadium will be much better placed than the stadium is in Miami. So they'll have that going for them, but you never know. It might not be good in Vegas.
So what, in your opinion, do you think the timeline is? And obviously we're not experts on Nevada politics, but what do you think the timeline is on when we'll see things come kind of more into focus as far as where their progress is?
Yeah, I think that's a question that I would love to know. So I think that the Nevada state legislature adjourns sometime in early June, but that they can call a special session to do this. I remember, so my dad was a White Sox fan. But when I was a very young kid, the White Sox were rumored to move to St. Petersburg I think it was either before or after the Giants fell through. The White Sox were going to move. And so my dad raised me to be a Cubs fan, thinking that the White Sox were going to move. And he just didn't want to, he didn't want to raise me to be a team of it, to be a fan of a team that would move. I think he also wanted to go to twice as many baseball games.
Right.
It's like, well, if I make him a Cubs fan, then we can go to both. But when they passed that, when the Illinois State Legislature passed the money to build New Comiskey Park, which was a new beautiful stadium for exactly 1 year, because 1 year later they opened Camden and realized New Comiskey Park was built completely wrong. But when they passed the money to do that, they had to take the batteries out of the clock in the state legislature at 11:59, because it took them like 3 more hours to get the votes. And so legislatures, especially for stadium stuff, I'm sure they could have like a special session or whatever. So I think we'll know more in a month, and we'll know either way by the sometime in July, maybe by the 1st of July, probably maybe by the middle of July. I think they're either going to get it or they're not. Hopefully, I don't know. It might drag on there too, but dragging on would be a win. So
That's true. That's true. And that's what, people keep talking about, ways they can protest. And it's like, I think the most effective thing that I've seen so far online is these people that are going to Nevada citizens and telling them, you don't want this. You might want a baseball team. This is not the one you want under these people or whatever. And trying to get those folks involved, because ultimately our part is done. There's nothing that A's fans can do in Oakland Oakland does not need swaying, but Nevada, at this point, Nevada is the one that needs swaying. And I think that's a smart thing that I've seen some fans do is focus on that aspect.
I think one fan made the website knowNevadamoney.com.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a handy way to, if people in Nevada, send them to that website, and they can fill out something to send to their governor and their state assembly or state senate. And it also has the phone numbers of those offices. And, really, if you're going to ask, somebody, a close friend or a close somebody or a parent who lives in Nevada, the best thing to do is have them call. I think I go back and forth on this. I think that there's going to be more pushback than there probably was when they built the Raiders Stadium, but I also don't know how much pushback there was when they built the Raiders Stadium.
But I think there might be more pushback because they built the Raiders Stadium. There's still a bitter taste in people's mouth about the amount of money that went into that.
I think that's right. And I think like every week that they see it filled with opposing state fans, you think, yeah.
That would be the point when Manfred should step in and actually do some commissioner stuff. But, I'm not going to hold my breath that that'll happen either.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I just desperately wish we had was a system like they have in Europe, where like football, it's still, these leagues are still somewhat controlled by owners, but because of promotion and relegation, no owner actually owns a stake in the league. And there's, these like, football administrations that are like nominally in control of these leagues to make sure that like the right thing sort of happens. And, with only a small handful of, examples out of the, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of teams in Europe, none of them ever move. The only way for a team to, get into the top league is through promotion. And, with a promotion and relegation system, the A's may already had been relegated long ago, but we'd still have our A's, and and they'd still be like a team that could possibly build itself back up.
Right.
And and in this case, it's just going to go away, and there's sort of like never hope that anything could ever replace it. So. You talk about Rob Manfred, like, well, yeah, I mean, his job is to lead a cartel that's owned by owners, there's no way to enter the cartel unless you somehow get extremely lucky and are able to bribe them by billions of dollars. And or gets extremely lucky and someone's willing to sell you one of their teams for billions of dollars. So of course he's gonna take the owner's side every single time, and
Yeah, but
there's no steward there to say, is this what's right for
and
baseball?
the thing that bugs me the most about it though is these are called franchises because that's the way it's set up, right? It's all goes back to the early days of the formation of the leagues and anti-monopoly stuff and all that kind of thing. These are franchises. And if you owned a McDonald's franchise and all you did was make cheap imitation Whoppers, the people in charge of McDonald's would say, you better start making some Big Macs or we're going to close the place down. And what Manfred does time and time again is he goes, you know what? If you took the onions off, you can make the Whoppers even cheaper. Time and time again. And that's not a way. He is Mr. How are we going to grow this business? How are we going to sustain baseball for another 150 years? And he keeps doing things like that it's like, well, maybe stop slapping fan bases around at every waking moment you can get. Stop doing the territorial rights the way you do. Adopt more web-friendly content and things. Stop cracking down on people sharing gifts, for crying out loud. Like all these things. And he's done it so often. And Bud before him did the exact same thing. They are so wrapped up in servicing the owners, which I get is their job, but their job is also to they can control the tide that raises these ships. And just because all the owners want something or whatever, or they're convinced that it's the right thing, doesn't necessarily mean it's good for the sport. And what's good for the sport will ultimately be good for the teams. And that's just why I just don't think there's no leadership. Like I said at the beginning of this, there's no leadership on any side of this, whether it's civic, baseball, team wide. There's no leadership on any aspect of this that is actually stepping up to the occasion. Otherwise, this would have been done already. Lou Wolf would have got it done 20 years ago if there was any kind of competent leadership at the helm on this.
Yeah. I think the fact that every owner of the A's knew that if they failed to be able to build in Oakland, they might get an excuse to leave. I think that too might have been a perpetual stumbling block because, if you know that you're stuck in Oakland and there's no way out, or you're stuck in the Bay Area and there's no way out, like, if you're a professional team owner in Europe, then, you won't be cheap and you'll actually pay for whatever you need to have done be done. And I think that's what, I think that like California does not make it easy. California does not make it easy at all. And it's a shame, and it causes California a lot of problems for a lot of other things. But it sucks that the reason is, it's not like the Raiders, where like the Raiders, like Oakland was like, fuck off. We're not interested. Like they could have gotten it done if they had to, but they found a better deal.
So without being totally negative forever and ever and ever, give me a positive thing, something that like a moment of positivity in your career with the A's or your dealings with the fandom and all that kind of stuff. Like, what is something, if all this ends up in Vegas in a year, what's something that you can take from your experience with this team that is special to you?
I think I'll answer in two ways. So I'll answer, like what's already happened. I think I've had so many sort of like special memories with kids or with fans. I think the first like kind of special memory that happened to me, like I always remember, where an adult came up to me and said, "Hey, we took our 5-year-old to the game 3 weeks ago. And on the way home, he couldn't shut up but the hot dog guy." I'm like, well, that's delightful. And just like having those kind of interactions with kids, like at the park because they're just having a
Right.
great time. And it's so, it seems, I'm not a parent. And so it seems, if kids are always as excited, but like focused their excitement as they are at a baseball game, being a parent must be, a breeze, right? They're
Oh, it
always in
totally
a
is.
good mood. Yeah,
Totally is.
absolutely. They're always in a good mood, so it's easy to, to like joke with them.
Yeah.
And
Mine threw an
it's
iPad at me yesterday, but other than that, it's great. It's just
yeah,
fantastic.
exactly, absolutely, right. It just was, those kind of interactions were so much fun. Then I think just like getting to know people, getting to know so many people at the game, by face or by name, and just being able to sit and talk with so many people. Like, um, Jim was the other hot dog vendor at Oakland, and has been a hot dog vendor at Oakland and at the Giants. He'd been vending for like 35 years, and he was the one who started with me, but he passed away in the end of 2019. But he would always beat me in tips every night when we start, because he would sell hot dogs at the Giants, and I didn't understand that because he would never sell that many, because you want to do a lot of volume, but he would like walk away with just huge wads of tips. And so when we started doing this in Oakland, he would still just destroy me in tips. And I go, what are you doing? Like, I'm selling 10 more, 20 more hot dogs, 25 more hot dogs a game than you, and you're killing me. And he's just like, well, I just sit down and talk to them. I just like have a conversation with them like they're my friends. And eventually I sort of learned from him. But it turned out that not only was that good for tips, but like it was also a lot of fun. You just got to meet so many people.
Yeah.
You get to be part of their fandom and their experience at a place that they love. And you get to know them. I there was there are a couple of my regulars, and I won't say who, but they it would often be a guy and his really elderly mom, or be him and his brother and his mom. There's sometimes more of the family, but he and his mom were there the most, and they would order hot dogs for me all the time. And I got a phone call like a couple months ago that she'd passed, and the guy was like, "Would you bring hot dogs to her like service?" And I was like, "I'm out of town, I can't do it." But like, just like it's weird to become part of people's families like that, and that all those kind of like fun things and fun memories. I'll never have a job. I'll have jobs that pay better, but I'll never have a job that, from like on a day-to-day basis, I'll enjoy doing more.
Right.
But the one thing that I'm still really excited about is June 13th, and that's that reverse boycott day. And I don't know how many fans are going to. I think it was feeling like this was the greatest idea ever and very exciting news, because we were doing that for only a few days before they announced that they were leaving. But I still really think it's going to be a really fun night. I want. I don't know how many people are going to show up, but it'll be a lot more people than showed up on June 12th, that Monday. And I just
And I've
kind of like,
seen
yeah.
I've seen that now they've got some T-shirts that you can get. Was that for the 13th or was that for tomorrow's thing? That now
Oh
like
yeah.
somebody's made up some T-shirts that you can get if you go to the game. And
So I think that those T-shirts are going to be the June 13th T-shirts. I think that
okay,
the Oakland 68s are going to have a bunch of T-shirts that say sell. Last Dive Bar, of course, has their own T-shirts for it. I just want people to come and have a good time, and like also just like tell their friends to come. You know,
yeah,
tell people who are checked out from the A's, because a lot of people are checked out, or a lot of people are demoralized. So I think it's like, you know, call your cousin, tell him June 13th still on, we're coming. Um,
Ginger in the chat says she took her nephew Elliot, who is adorable by the way, out to the park last year, and he spent most of the game looking for Hal. I'm certain Hal is what he'll miss the most.
Yeah, I mean that's
That's some
it's
connection,
silly,
man. Yeah.
silly, but yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the whole
I
thing's
think
silly. We're attached to a bunch of guys throwing a ball around the park for 3
yeah,
hours. The whole thing is silly, but that doesn't mean it's not important
yeah.
and
That's
not
right.
meaningful to your life.
I think that I learned most about it during Corona, when and I know that there's also a lot of Ace fans who have never been to the Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
When I had like a Twitter like whatever that clubhouse, that live chat thing is, the night of it, we had a guy call in from Idaho, and then a guy call in from Kentucky, who was just like, I don't know why I picked the A's, but I picked them, uh, and I've never been to California, so that's crazy to me. But I also just feel like, because during Corona we realized what it was like to not be able to meet as a group, and
Yeah.
you won't find this surprising. I think it's a lot of fun to get together with a lot of people and just chant and cheer about stuff.
Yeah,
So
totally.
um, it's like part of being a human almost. But it is silly, but it I'm thankful we still have the roots.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay. So I've taken enough of your time for today. Is there anything else you want to throw out there? Anything you want to promote? I know you've got the Ricky Henderson of blogs, which somewhere, who was it up here? Uh, Somebody has accused you of having a parallel path with the Ricky Pod
Yeah,
and switched
yeah,
over.
Q. Yeah, Q. Yep, I understand that. I'll I go wherever they're offering the most, and this show offered to let me drink wine while on it. So
And I am out
them's
of my rum.
them's economics, baby. Oh, also, Timothy, the best owner in baseball was a 12-year-old kid in Minnesota. Yes, that's absolutely true. My favorite movie as a kid was uh whatever, like Little Big Leagues, I think was it called, that movie where a kid inherits the Minnesota Twins while he's like in high school or something.
They
But
just
yeah,
don't make movies
Ricky.
like they used to.
uh, oh, they just don't. Ricky blog, you can find me there. If Tomorrow, Friday night, if you come to the Coliseum, you can find me in right field. I know it's a tough day for people because of the Warriors, but I think it's still gonna be fun tomorrow night. Causing a ruckus in the outfield, and it'll just be good to see people in person too.
Yeah.
Other than that, I've been, I think, I've been I've done one Roots game where at halftime I've just thrown free hot dogs into the crowd. I think I'll do that again on Saturday, so you can see me there. Yeah, and thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. And for everybody that was in the chat, thanks for joining live and chiming in. If you're watching this later in the week and you want to participate, let me know. I'm open to having everybody. You don't need to have how level of popularity to be on this. This is for the fans, and I hope that more of you will join me on this as we keep going, and we'll keep updating on stuff in Vegas. And if you want to listen to it as an audio thing, it is available as a podcast. We're on all the major podcast areas called Uprooted from Oakland, so you can check it out there if you want to listen to it at work. What were you going to say?
Nope, that's it. Great. Thank you so
All right.
much for having me.
Thank you. Have a great night, and we will see everyone next week.